It's a quiet, crushing kind of shock when someone like Kyle Busch leaves us. Two-time NASCAR Cup Series champion, one of the most polarizing and successful drivers of his generation, gone at just 41 years old. The news hit like a wreck at full speed, swift, brutal, and impossible to ignore. Kyle didn't fade out slowly. He was suddenly taken from the sport he helped define, leaving behind a legacy that feels too big to fit into a single headline. He was a man who had already lived 2 full careers' worth of triumphs, controversies, injuries, and comebacks, and now, instead of another race, another roar of engines, we're left with silence and memories. Kyle Busch was born in Las Vegas in 1985, and from the very beginning, there was something different about him. He wasn't just fast, he was fearless. Even as a teenager racing in NASCAR's lower series, he carried himself like he belonged at the top, and in many ways, he was right. He earned his reputation early, a driver who would push the limit, sometimes over it, and wasn't afraid to talk about it. To some, that made him arrogant. To others, it made him real. There was never any hiding how Kyle felt, whether he was furious after a wreck, ecstatic after a win, or frustrated after a bad finish. He wore his emotions like his fire suit, loud, visible, and impossible to ignore. By the time he reached his prime, Kyle Busch had already rewritten the record books. He's the only driver in NASCAR history with more combined wins across the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series than anyone else. That simple fact carries a weight that casual fans might not fully grasp. To win at that level, over that long of a span, takes more than talent. It takes obsession. An obsession with speed, with preparation, with never letting a mistake go unanswered. Kyle didn't just want to be good. He wanted to be the best, and more often than not, he backed up that desire with results. His first Cup Series championship in 2015 was a story of redemption, coming after a brutal injury in the Daytona Xfinity race that nearly ended his season. The second, in 2019, was proof that he wasn't a one-time wonder. He was a driver who could adapt, evolve, and keep fighting even when the sport around him changed. But what made Kyle Busch such a fascinating figure wasn't just his wins. It was the way he lived through them. He was never the polished, carefully managed superstar. He was the driver who would argue with officials, clash with rivals, and sometimes push fans' emotions as far as he pushed his car. Yet, off the track, there was another side. He was deeply devoted to his family, especially to his wife Samantha, who stood beside him through every controversy and every comeback. Together, they turned personal pain into purpose, founding the Bundle of Hope charity and becoming a powerful voice for adoption and for children without homes. That's the part of Kyle that didn't always make the highlight reels, but for many people, it's the part that mattered the most. So when news broke that Kyle had been hospitalized, people's hearts sank. The initial reports were vague, only describing a severe illness that struck quickly. There was no crash, no visible cause, just a sudden, invisible enemy that pulled him from the garage and into a hospital bed. The racing world watched in stunned silence, hoping for a familiar Kyle-style recovery, the kind of comeback that had become his trademark. But this time, the comeback never came. He passed away in the hospital, just days before he was scheduled to race at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, a race that had been circled on calendars as another chapter in his already legendary career. Instead, it became the backdrop to a story that no one wanted to tell. The exact cause of death has not been publicly disclosed, and for now, that detail remains in the hands of his family and the people closest to him. That privacy is important, not because the mystery is fascinating, but because it reminds us that behind every statistic, every victory, and every headline is a human being with a life, a family, and a story that extends far beyond the track. Kyle's absence will echo through NASCAR for years. Commentators will stop mid-sentence when they realize a wreck or a bold move would have sparked a brilliant or fiery Kyle Busch reaction. Drivers who once battled with him on the track will race with a weight they didn't feel before, knowing they've lost a rival who pushed them to be better, whether they liked it or not. For fans, the loss is even more personal. Many of us grew up watching Kyle Busch race. We saw him in his early, reckless days. We watched him win championships. We saw him get hurt, and we celebrated when he came back stronger. He was part of weekend rituals, of Sunday afternoon routines, of late-night replays where we whispered, "He's not going to make that move." Oh, he did. Now, those moments are frozen in time. There will be no more last-lap passes, no more post-race interviews full of passion, and no more rowdy suit jacket walks down the pit lane. The only thing that keeps going is the memory, the sound of the engines, the smell of the fuel, and the image of Kyle behind the wheel, eyes fixed on the horizon ahead. In the days and weeks that follow, tributes will pour in from every corner of the sport. Former teammates, current rivals, legends from previous generations, and young drivers just starting out will all testify to how much Kyle Busch shaped NASCAR. Some will talk about his competitiveness, others about his work ethic, and a few will admit, quietly, that they admired him more than they ever let on. Those voices will remind us that even the most controversial figures can leave behind something beautiful, a legacy built not just on wins, but on influence. Kyle didn't just win races. He changed how people thought about them. He made fans lean forward in their seats, made commentators raise their voices, and made the sport feel more alive, even when he was the one driving everyone crazy. As we close this story, it's worth remembering that Kyle Busch was never meant to be a legend in the past tense. He was a man in his early 40s, still racing, still fighting, still very much part of the present. That's what makes his passing so painful. It feels premature, unfinished, like a race that was red flagged before the checkered flag. And yet, in the way that sports legends often are, his life will continue to inspire. Young drivers will still study his moves. Fans will still rewatch his most dramatic wins, and new generations will learn his name not as a footnote, but as a force. In that sense, Kyle Busch hasn't truly left the track. He's just no longer in the cockpit. If you've been moved by his story, by his passion, or by the way he turned every race into a grudge, please take a moment to like this video and let others know that Kyle Busch's memory still matters. If you're someone who follows the lives and legacies of athletes who leave us too soon, consider subscribing to this channel, where we honor the journeys, the tragedies, and the triumphs of the people who gave everything to the sports we love. Together, we can keep their stories alive. One race, one moment, and one memory at a time.